all senators receive notice of the hearings that are scheduled this week. And one of them is a motu proprio hearing of the Committee on Health headed by Senator Bongo. I've mentioned, we have discussed this, so this is just to enlighten our colleagues. It is a motu proprio hearing on the transfer of funds of PhilHealth to Treasury. Mr. President, you will recall just before we adjourned, a similar issue had been brought, this representation brought a similar issue to the attention of the body when there was also a motu proprio hearing called by the Committee on Health on an issue regarding Belkens. As discussed, and then Senate President Mig Subiri was involved in the discussion, so was former Majority Floor Leader Joel Villanueva. And I will repeat this discussion. Senate Rule number 10, Section 13.2 on the jurisdiction and powers of the Committee on Accountability of Public Officers and Investigations, that is the Blue Ribbon Committee, is the only committee that is allowed to have motu proprio hearings. To be specific, it says on its own initiative or brought to its attention by any member of the Senate. Then it was further discussed that there's Senate Resolution number 5, Section 2, Rules of Procedure Governing Inquiries in Aid of Legislation. I believe this is a 2010 rules. It was approved in 2010, states that any of its committee inquiries may be initiated by the Senate or any of its committee if the matter is within its competence, or upon petition filed or upon information given by any senator. So during the discussion before we adjourned, it appeared to be the decision that committees can have motu proprio hearings. So I would like the body to be informed that this is what we will be, this is what will transpire. There may be a couple of senators who are likewise concerned about the transfer of funds. I know for certain Senator J.V. Ejercito, former Majority Floor Leader Joel Villanueva are also concerned. I am also concerned. I have a draft resolution I'm filing today. I think Senator J.V. already filed a draft resolution himself. So then our procedure normally is the Committee on Rules will now determine who will hear this. And then there is also a second referral for committees who, well, it's a self-explanatory second referral. So if we will now be having motu proprio hearings, these are the following, this is what we can expect. There will be a disruption of our system and order because there will already be a motu proprio hearing without the Committee on Rules being able to decide what to do with the other resolutions. There will also be conflict with the resource persons. We may be calling them more than once, and these are very busy personnel. They are running the agencies. And then third, we may have varying recommendations. And fourth, I will stand up here all the time and ask what are we going to do so we can have an orderly conduct of business. Therefore, Mr. President, I submit this to the Committee on Rules. May we, this may be something the chairman may want to discuss with his members, but I don't think we can go on this way, Mr. President, with all due respect to our colleagues who are eagerly taking on the responsibilities of hearing these very important issues.
With the permission of the Majority Leader, Chair would like to make comments. The lady is correct. The rule was amended sometime in 2010. And I was informed, even at the previous issue, when the first time this was raised, that the intention of the amendment, the intention behind it, although it seems like the words of the amended rule did not reflect the intention. The intention was to enable the committees to conduct a hearing during recess,
yes,
when we are not in session, so that they can act immediately on whatever was urgent.
Yes.
But that, in practice, and the example given was the late former Senator Santiago, even she filed a resolution when the Senate resumed its session already, even if she already conducted an initial motu proprio hearing in order to afford the Committee on Rules the opportunity to go over it, study, and refer it to the appropriate committee. Because although it is rarely objected to whenever the majority leader makes a reference on the floor, technically it's the whole body that agrees to it.
Yes.
When nobody objects. So Chair would like to express support and agreement with the concern of the lady from Taguig and would refer this matter to the Rules Committee to look into amending this particular rule, amend it further to clarify the intent of, to reflect the intent of the Senate when we amended this particular rule. I'm referring, Majority Leader, to Section 2 on the Rules of Procedure Governing Inquiries in Aid of Legislation, so that we won't be faced with this issue for a third time in the past 3 months, as you know, as you very well know. But with the indulgence of Senator Pia, since the notices have been sent, it seems, by Senator Go, what is your pleasure?
Thank you for
insofar
asking.
as this
Yes. I'm ready.
scheduled hearing is concerned?
I have a response, Mr. President. Thank you for asking. With all due respect to the chairman, and we know that he has reached out to the concerned agencies and checked on their availability. This representation has no objections that His Honor would proceed, but without prejudice, no, to number one, the rules being clarified, and then a possibility later on, if the Blue Ribbon, this representation has that interest as Blue Ribbon Chair, the Committee on Finance, Senator Grace Poe, may have an interest because this involves a memo circular of the Department of Finance, without prejudice for that also, these committees being involved or taking charge, taking the lead later on. But I have absolutely no objection to the hearing proceeding on Thursday, Mr.
Thank
President.
you for your magnanimity and understanding, Senator Pia. Before I recognize Senator Go, Senator Villanueva, our former majority leader, just reminded me that we discussed this as a sidebar on the sides of the floor. And according to him, and he reminded me, the Committee on Rules already has a draft amendment to this particular section of our rules that perhaps the majority leader and the Committee on Rules can consider so that we can address this issue once and for all. Senator Go,
Mr. President, before
Majority Leader is recognized.
Before we recognize Senator Go with the permission of this body, we take note of the manifestation of Senator Cayetano. Indeed, our rules can be ascertained textually that it is only the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee that can conduct motu proprio investigations even during a non-recess period. And as explained by the good Senate President, Section 2 of Resolution number 5 would mean a committee working during a recess, and a clarificatory amendment to this section should forthwith be made by the Committee on Rules and be approved by this body. But, Mr. President, considering the concurrence just made by the good lady senator from Taguig, that she is willing to allow probably might not be the proper term, have the Senate Committee on Health proceed with a proposed investigation. Mr. President, this probably might be the last instance wherein a controversy, quote-unquote, such as this would transpire, because indeed we will be amending the rules, Mr. President. May we recognize now, Mr. President, Senator Bongo.
Senator Go is recognized. You may proceed, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Senate Rules of Procedure Governing Inquiries in Aid of Legislation provides that inquiries may be initiated by the Senate or any of its any of its committees if the matter is within its competence. We want to conduct a motu proprio hearing immediately on the PhilHealth issue, since we considered the availability of the resource persons. Tinanong po namin kahapon, we want to follow the 3-day rule notice. We wanted to file a resolution. In fact, we wanted to file a resolution, but we consider that it may not be referred on time for the hearing. I earlier consulted with the Senate President prior to releasing the notice yesterday. The committee simply followed the existing rules that we have right now, but I defer it to the Committee on Rules whether to proceed or not. Thank you, Mr. President.
The remarks of the gentleman is duly noted. Majority Leader?
Mr. President, I reiterate my previous motion that we go into a recess. Minute suspension, Mr. President.
Session is suspended.